Hello everyone, Daniel Yuck here. Thank you all for tuning in today. I appreciate you. Today I'm going to bring you all an in-depth video and I'm going to share with you all my logic, my thought process, and my approach that I go through to go ahead and figure out where I want to apply shading when tattooing. For this video, I'm going to be demonstrating with this Trueskin fake skin right here. I will leave links for you in the description below. I have an assortment of needles right here in which I'm also going to elaborate on in this video, and I'm going to be using an ink claw tattoo machine with the ink claw power supply right here. Again, links will be in the description below for you. At any point throughout this video, should you have any questions, I'm going to highly encourage you to drop a comment down below. I will do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. With that being said, let's dive straight on into this. So, first and foremost, where I like to start is I'm going to just basically take it from the top. So when I am going to shade a tattoo, I'm always going to look at the design, and the design is going to determine what needle size I want to use to apply shading. So for this design right here, there is a lot of tighter spots right here that I want to be real precise where I place my pigment down, put the ink into. So for something like this, me personally, I would go with a bug pin 5-round liner, or I would use a 003 round liner right here. This one's a quill bug pin 5-round liner. This one's a Solong tattoo 003 round liner, and I would pick these simply because of the needle size. It is at a perfect size for me that I'm able to put ink in tighter spots, and I'm actually going to demonstrate that for you all here. So this right here is going to come down to personal preference. It's what you are comfortable using on your end. You can also use something like this. You can use a standard 5-round liner as well. This one's from Ink Claw. I don't see anything wrong with, shading with the needles that you choose, as long as, again, you're comfortable with the results that you are trying to achieve. Some people shade with mags as well, but for this demonstration, I'm going to stick with maybe these two needles right here. I'm going to begin with the bug pin 5-round liner from Quill, and I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate and basically explain my thought process, so that way you can kind of get some insight. Take what you want, leave what you don't. Yet again, just to confirm for you all, if you have any questions, drop them below. So for this demonstration, I went with the Solong 003 round liner, as you see right here. Now, when I am shading, again, I'm not thinking of an elaborate light source, or I'm not really trying to overcomplicate it. I'm really just picturing one light source, whether it's right here in the middle, right down the middle, right here, whether it's right here, right here. It doesn't matter. I think that would really depend on the design and where you want the lighting to hit, so to speak. Now, let me go ahead and explain another aspect here. So you want to establish some sort of light source where the light is going to be hitting. That's always one of the first thoughts that comes to my head. It can be straight down the middle, it can be right here, it can be right here, 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 anywhere you want. I think the design would actually determine where you want the light source to be hitting. Light hitting certain areas may look better versus lights hitting other areas. Once I've determined where I want my light source to be coming from, I'm then going to want to look at the actual design, and what really helps guide me along the way as well is the actual form of the design. That's what I'm constantly paying attention to, is the form. And then after that, it's really about technical application and approach, making sure that we are applying the style of shading correctly with whatever needle that we choose. So off the bat, those are some of the 3 main important variables that I am considering. I'm considering where I want the light coming from to hit. I'm considering the form of the design, and I'm also considering my technical application expertise with the setup that I am using. Once I've got all of that situated, I'm now ready to proceed to begin actually applying the shading, in which we're going to jump into now. So allow me to zoom in here, and we're going to keep working on this horse right here. So off the bat right here in this neck area, I do see some form that I want to follow. And again, this is going to vary. The way that I'm seeing the design versus the way that you're going to see the design is going to be 2 completely different things, and that's perfectly okay. So again, take what you want, leave what you don't. I'm trying to explain the fundamentals and my thought process here on how I figure out where I want to put shading. And I'm going to be using straight black dynamic tattoo ink as well. So for this here, when I'm thinking of form here, I do see this neck area kind of, forming in by these 2 lines. So what I'm envisioning here, and I'm running at 8 volts even for those who are wondering. The form that I'm seeing right here on this neck area is not necessarily starting from these points. I don't want to start right from up here and bring it down. I'm starting in this area right here is how I'm envisioning the form. So I'm going to begin right here. And I'm just going to use the very, very tips of my needles and brush this on there, as you see me doing. Just like that. And I like to approach it with this brushing motion, so that way I get some more time in that area, so that way I can really build up the layers rather than just apply them all in at once. And in this case, I'm actually going to do a little bit of cross hatching here. And I'm just going to go in the direction of right rather than up and down. And as you can see, we have a nice little shaded area. Another thing that I'm considering during the process is how dark I want some spots versus how dark I want others. For me, I really don't put too much thought into that, as when I would overthink it, I wouldn't shade at all. So for this, I kind of just keep it going. Maybe I can go about one more time, and I'm just going to go at a little direction going up this way. And this would be minimal damage to the skin, simply because we are brushing it in there. We're not lining. So that's how I'm following the form in this neck area. And I can also, I'm seeing some form right here. Just a little. I don't want these shadings to connect, but I do want them to show the form here. So I'm going to do that. I really feel though as well, I guess just shading and practicing, making the mistakes, making the errors up front, knowing what you like out of your shading and knowing what you don't is going to be crucial. So I would highly recommend investing into some fake skin, whether it's Trueskin or Reelskin. That's what I'm using nowadays. I use both and they're both outstanding. I would recommend figuring out what needles you're comfortable with. I would recommend figuring out your personal voltage with your hand speed and all of that. So that way when you are hitting human skin, you're going to be well acquainted with what you're supposed to be doing. So you can see I'm kind of just following the form here, and again the design itself is determining where this shading here is going. And one reason why I personally enjoy practicing is because when I'm shading, I figure out spots where I don't want to shade, and then I like spots where I do want to shade, so I can feel my constant progression as well when I am practicing on fake skin constantly. So right here as well, I do see a little bit of form within this crease right here. So what I would like to do is, I'm not necessarily going to go right up on this line, but more so right next to it right here. And I'm just going to brush back and forth in this area right here, going this way. So as you see, I'm putting a little bit of shading in this area as well, and not too much. Some areas are going to be darker than others, and again, that's going to be personal preference. Like in this area right here, you can see that I went right up on the line right here. And again, that's not necessarily wrong if that's what you're going for. So that's again why I feel it's crucial to really invest time and effort into fake skin and figuring out shading and how you want it to go and different tones and everything that goes into it, really. Okay, so as you see, I went right there, and this area is darker than this area. What I can do is you can make this area darker here should you choose to do so. I don't really feel like there is a right or wrong, especially when we're building our skill sets. You want to make those mistakes, and we want to be comfortable with making those mistakes, just not on human skin. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of finalize this one right here and move on to the next spot. I'm just going to give it a little bit of cross hatching here just to smooth it out just a little bit. And I know it's subtle, it's very, very little, but all of these shadings do start adding up to a final image. And then this area right here, you can shade as you want. You can go all the way up to the line should you choose to do so, and which is not wrong. Just going to do a little subtle shading right here in this area. And the reason why I'm putting shading in these areas is because of the specific form. I'm working off of the lines that are there. And this would apply as well to a stencil. Let's say your stencil didn't have any lines. I'm actually going to be bringing more tutorials on how we go about doing that, no line stencils and no line tattoos. But for now, we're going to worry about this. So yeah, you can see the idea behind it is to figure out the form, find out where you're going to start working from, and kind of work from there. So this area right here from the hair, I can see a little form coming this way, just a little bit. Like that. Now as you can see, again, I'm using the very, very tip of the needle and I'm brushing these shadings on there. I'm not rushing the process here. I don't want to go too dark too quick, because we can always add more, but we can't take out. So if we go too dark too quick, there's really no way to fix that. So for me personally, I would rather use just the very, very tips of my needles. As you see, I'm even hanging it out quite a bit, and I'm just applying it with my comfortability, to the best of my ability, sorry, with my setup here. Again, I'm running at 8 volts, and I'm just matching my hand to my current voltage. You on your end, you're going to have to get comfortable with that as well. So as you can see on this area, I went right up on the line right here. And then in this area over here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the shadow or the shading right here, and I'm going to leave this area open. It's just because the form naturally, for me as an artist, I see the form fitting better like this rather than going right up on that line. Now I'm going to encourage you, if you have any questions, don't hesitate, drop them below, and I'm going to do my best to assist you in the best possible direction. And through areas like this, like for example, if I were to keep going darker right here in this area would begin to look rather muddy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave areas like this open more than adding shading, because sometimes less is more. I also want to avoid that muddiness from my shading. So in order to do that, I have to be mindful of where I'm applying the shading. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm building in this area right here for right now. As you can see, we have these little guys right here. And I'm also using a Pull Army hand rest here to do this tattoo on. I'll leave that in the description below so you can check that out. It's an awesome hand rest for tattooing. So as you see right here, if you look real close, I added 2 shadings right here, but they're not touching or anything. I don't want them to touch this area, and I don't want them to touch each other, because I want there to have some sort of dimension, some sort of depth. I don't want to have muddiness in certain areas for simply because of the lack of effort. So as you can see right there, that looks actually pretty nice. It doesn't look muddy when it could have ended way worse. So I'm going to keep on going here. And this area, I'm just going to do a light little shadow right there. And the only difference from this to human skin, I would approach it the exact same way with brushing just the very tips of my needles. However, I would definitely have a stretch on the skin. Now I'm just going to go ahead and keep it going here. And then for this area, I want it to be a little bit more darker and I want a curve. So what I'm also doing is I'm using the form of the design to set my foundation here. And then I'm using my application and expertise here that I have to apply this to the best of my ability with the specific needle that I chose. And I kind of want this just a little darker. And figuring out where you want your darker spots versus where you want your lighter spots, I feel is pretty much development. It's something that we work into. Example, even where I am placing the shading right now, I'm sure some of us may not agree and would have placed it otherwise. And I feel that's the beauty of art itself, is that there's always going to be different results per individual, per mind. And that is something I feel to embrace rather than bash each other for. So moving front here, this area right here as well, like these little tight areas can get really muddy really quickly, or we can use them to add a lot of depth and dimension. It's really going to depend on the way that we are approaching it. So for me in this area, I don't want to I don't want to get close to all of these lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from this area on this line, and I'm going to come down here and then leaving an open area right here. So allow me to explain and show you here. And this for me is just how I see the form sitting right now. So I'm going to go to around that right there. I like that tone. And I'm going to do the same thing right here, but just upwards, going this way. And again, I'm trying to follow the form to the best of my ability on how I see it. I may not always be right. However, when I apply the application well and I'm going through it and I see the overall results, I am able to learn and grow and figure out what I like and what I don't for my shading, which allows me to ultimately master my shading. Okay, so as you see in this area, I'm going to leave it like so, just a couple of shadings like so. And I don't want to add too much because, again, this area can go, muddy really, really quickly. I'm going to move on over to this area right here now. And I'm going to kind of just keep this same thought process here, just following the form of the design. So I want people to please note who are shading that shading is rather difficult and it's not something that's easy. So if you're not happy with your results, don't get discouraged. Keep going. It will become natural. Again, we just have to work and build up to it. And I would recommend coming back and re-watching this video after you've practiced for about a week or so, and then go through it again, because the way that you're absorbing the information right now is going to be different from a week. So let's go ahead and continue here. And in this area right here is where we're working on, and I do like the way it's coming out. And again, I'm sure people felt like they would have placed it differently. That's totally fine. I still hope that my points get across and help you all in a better direction. So for this area, I'm actually going to apply the shading from this way, from right to left. And as you can see, I do it line by line, dot by dot. A little darker, and then you could crosshatch as well. So I'm gonna right here start from this corner on the left, and then I'm gonna crosshatch going down, giving me a darker tint up here at the top because I was putting more pressure up here, bringing it down. And then I'm going to continue over here following the form. So I'm going to just bring a little shading down right here. So as you see right here, in this area, I am shading and whipping it this way. So basically where I'm starting from, that's where the needle goes in the absolute most, and then we kind of just whip it out that way. So where I start from is essentially going to be where the darkest points are going to be. Still just working off the very tips of my needles. Shading is nothing like lining, so I would recommend mastering lining first, and then shading will come naturally or much more easier. So as you see right here, we're still going in this direction. For me, I kind of want a little bit more definition for this area right here, meaning I want it a little bit more darker. And then here we can do just a little bit of subtle shading right here in this area. So moving front here, I'm going to do this area right here, and this is another area right here that can go muddy really quickly. Well, actually, to be fair, any area can go muddy rather quickly. So for this area right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from this area, this point right here, and I'm going to work up, and then from this area. So as you see, I'm leaving a negative space around this area. I'm leaving it the natural skin tone there, I want that highlighted through. And all of these choices that I'm making is really pretty much ultimately development, really. This is just choices that I've learned to make after doing a lot of shading. I've done a lot of tattoos on fake skin, I've done a lot of tattoos on human skin. So over the time of just working and really focusing on specific aspects such as shading, if you're going to sit there for an entire week and just practice shading, by the end of the week you're going to be better at shading. Especially if you're doing your best, putting your best foot front to actually learn the fundamentals, it'll naturally happen. And as you see right here, this line area determined the shading right here, as you see going this way. So let's go ahead and move on over here. And in this area right here, this is another area that we can kind of lose dimension in, or it can get muddy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to leave a little negative spot there where I'm putting just a little bit of shading right here. Just very, very subtle. It all adds up. And then in this area right here, since it's kind of connected and this is like more mandala-ish than horse-like right here, I'm going to kind of just do the best of my ability and feel it out, so to speak. So I'm going to first and foremost, I see the shading right here, so I'm going to start right here. And typically when you shade, you're going to want to have a plan. You're going to want to have a plan of approach. Don't just free shade, especially if you're not comfortable with shading at all, because the results won't be desirable. So make sure that you have a keen sense of applying shading, and then have a plan. So for me, my plan is to follow the form of the design and just be mindful of shadings in some areas. So like for example, this area right here, we can leave a negative rim, or we can start from here and bring it up. But for me, I think I'm going to leave the negative space there. So you see I have a little bit of shading right there, and that's how I'm choosing to go with it, just to avoid getting too muddy in this area right here. Go down that way to smooth it out. And the same thing with this area, how we approached it right here. We're going to kind of keep that same application and approach. And as you can see, I'm really paying attention to when I'm stopping and when I'm ending. Keep in mind, I'm not overlapping. I'm trying my best to stay within the confines of where I should be shading. I'm real mindful of that. I'm absolutely not rushing by any means. As you see here, cross hatching it just to build and get this area here darker and to smooth out the shading right here in this really tight area. And as you can see, I'm being real mindful of where I'm shading. I'm not going into this area because we really need that light source there. It's very important that that light comes through at that natural skin tone right here in this area comes up through. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and move on to this area up here, and we could approach it the same way up here, or you can leave again the light source. I'm going to go for a little bit more complicated approach, and I'm going to leave a negative space around and add shading like so. And then right here in this area, so as you see, I did leave a space up there up top, and I'm going to leave it like that. See how it reads in the end. And as you see in this area, I'm going to start from up here and then bring it this way. Just going to do it one more time. And I want this one a little lighter. I don't want this one to get too dark right here. I still want you to be able to see the lines under it. So I feel that's about good right there. Okay, so we have this horse done right here. Now it'll be really subjective. There's another line right here that we can go ahead and add shading to, which I would recommend. I won't recommend skipping areas. I would recommend just finishing them as you're going. I know for this demonstration it may be a little bit scattered, but we'll still get to where we're going. So as you see right here, I'm very delicate, trying not to really touch the other side of this line too much. I want that negative or that skin tone showing through. So I did a little bit of darkening in that area. I didn't want to leave it alone. I wanted to go ahead and kind of cohesively shade where I feel it's necessary. And I'm going to move on over to this area of the horse, and I may again demonstrate some of the wings as well here, just to kind of show you all again as much as I possibly can throughout this video. So right here in this area, I do see a little bit of shading coming down like this. And again, every design is going to be different. This design right here is a bit more complex and complicated, as there's a lot of details, a lot of curves going on here, and it is a mandala style tattoo, so it is a bit more, I would say, advanced than most tattoos I'm typically used to doing, such as floral and stuff like that. So as you see, I'm going in right here, and again, I'm really always mindful of the skin tone, of the natural skin tone. I always want there to be the skin tone showing, and for me, that's how I avoid muddiness, or that's another way that I go about avoiding, you know, getting the shading too muddy. So I went ahead and leaving this curve around right here. Oftentimes less is more. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of apply that same approach right here. I'm not going to go up to this lining. And these are just artistic choices that I am making. There's really no founded reason on why I'm doing it this way, like leaving the skin tone showing around like that. It's just as an artist approach, I'm kind of experimenting with different approaches, different looks, while explaining why I'm putting the shading where I'm putting it. So that's good right there. So you can see how I followed the form here of this area, but going in a different direction, and that's also following the form, and I'm cross hatching as well. But you see, I'm starting on this line and I'm moving this way because I need this area over here to be darker. I need this area right here to be darker. So that's why I'm starting and going that way, starting right to left, as you see. So we have that going right there. And then for this area right here, I also want to leave a rim of the natural skin showing. So I'm just going to simply move it here in downward motions like so. And as you notice, I'm leaving a negative rim right here. So I'm following the form. The form is really helping me figure out which direction I'm going to go in and how much shading I'm actually going to be needing in that area, just by simply looking. And as you can see, I'm not touching this eyebrow right here because I don't want it to go too flat. I don't want it to get muddy. I'm constantly thinking of this. And I apologize if I'm saying the same thing over and over, but throughout this process, it really doesn't change. I'm sticking to the fundamentals, I'm sticking to my guns, and I'm going through with what I know works for me. And these are basically some of the thoughts that I'm going through and thinking when I'm applying shading. And keep in mind, whenever I'm tattooing, and especially when it's on human skin, I always map it out. I always plan out the tattoo beforehand, so that way I don't go into tattoos nervous. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly which direction I'm going to be shading. I know exactly how dark I want certain areas and stuff like that. I also want to point out that I'm not I'm not trying to say that this is the only way to shade. This is a right way to shade. What I am doing is I'm sharing with you all how I go about shading and how I find shading and basically how I know where I want to put the shading. And in this area right here, I do want there to be a little bit of shading, but I also want the skin tone to show up through. So I'm just going to kindly brush like so on here. I can see this area right here coming like this. And then shading coming off right here. So you see in this area I went more towards the nose, and then in this area right here I'm keeping that skin tone showing through. And these are all just artist choices. Everyone's going to make different choices along the way. This is just what I've worked into and developed over my time. And then in this area right here, I'm gonna just do subtle right here, just a little, not too much there, since it's so tight right here. Now you're really going to want to take your time because all of this, the little choices that you're making, such as just doing something as small as this, really does add up to the tattoo. Paying attention to all of the little things like that really does make for a much better quality tattoo. And then right here in this area. Right here I'm just putting subtle shadings right here, and I don't want to really go up to the mouth right here. I kind of just want to keep a rim of the natural skin showing through like you see me doing right here. And keep in mind I'm brushing, which is why I get more time over the skin. Keep in mind I'm building up the layers. I'm not adding them. I'm building them up little by little by little by little. For me, I found the best results doing this. Same would same I guess method and build up would apply using mags as well. One of the biggest things that I struggled with when I first got into shading was adding too much shading. Honestly, I feel like I still struggle with that a bit. Again, you know, I'm sure all of us feel some sort of way about our work. But for me, knowing when to stop was crucial. So for me, I'm liking the way that the horse face is looking. So for this area right here, I mean, again, to each their own. I'm probably going to start from the hair and kind of just bring it in and just have some subtle shading. We don't need it too dark either. Yeah, it doesn't need to be too dark at all right here. We don't want to lose the difference, you know, the lining right here from the hair and the body. So some subtle shading I feel would do. You can go darker if you want, to each their own. However you envision the design, however you planned out the design. My goal isn't to make you feel like you have to only make certain moves and have to shade certain ways, which is why I kind of want you to think for yourself and figure out, you know, what you want of the tattoo, how you like your tattoos to look. Overall, long term, that's going to be better for you. And then I'm going to go up and down real quick just to kind of smooth things out. There we go. And then you can even go ahead and kind of use the hair as a guide and add a little bit of darker areas right here to kind of show the hair sitting on the horse's body. Like so. And right here I'm just simply following the hair, creating a little darker area around the hair, as you see, like so. So you can also go ahead and approach it like that and kind of just finish it out everywhere right here. And for this, I guess, little hair dropping shadow, I'm just going over it everywhere here, but just in a short stroke, as you see. And again, attention to those details is super, super important. I think not rushing is super important. So very cool. I like the way that that's looking. That's looking nice. Allow me to kind of demonstrate a little bit on these areas right here and how I would approach these wings, and then we can kind of close out this video. Again, I want to put you all in a safe, comfortable place. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below, and I'm going to do my best to assist you. For me, for the design and shape of these wings, this one is kind of rather more, I guess, simple. However, it is more on the tighter end here. So you want to be careful. You really want to take your time when you're applying shading. So for me, what I'm going to do is I kind of want the layers to kind of stack. So there's going to be a darker layer right here on the first one, a darker layer right here, darker layer right here, and you get the idea. But for this right here, let's go ahead and take these bigger ones so we can see what I'm doing. So what I want to do is I want to start from down here in the middle of it, and I'm just going to simply follow the design or the flow of that actual wing, and as you see, add the shading same way that I've been applying it, just in a different area, different motion. I really wanted to show that half and half color result, that darker tone and the regular skin tone right here. Don't want to go too dark either. And also I'm keeping in mind, since I'm starting on this side, all of them are going to be like that essentially. All of them are going to be starting in this top area and going down. So the lighter area is going to be on the bottom on all of the wings here. So keep that in mind. Now, how dark you want to go, it's fully up to you. I'm not going to tell you how dark to take your designs. I think that as an artist, that's fully up to you. But as you can see, though, I'm just going to have that same approach. Even with these little ones right here, the little guys right here, I'm going to calm, cool, and apply this to the best of my ability without going outside of where I'm supposed to be going. So you can see same thing with this one. I'm starting up here and I'm leaving this area right here, the skin tone color. And for these as well, don't get me wrong, you can crosshatch should you want to go ahead and do so. You can bring down your strokes in a different direction, but for me, I kind of want them going in one direction, so I'm going to keep it like that. As you can see, the same thing with these smaller ones. So you can see, so once we start doing these little techniques and this thought process, it all really starts adding up, especially when we're taking our time and doing the best to input the shading where we feel it should be. That effort, that little thought process really does show in the read of the tattoo. And I think that when we're done with all of the shading, going over and hitting it with some whites in some areas would really make it pop. Allow me to just finish this final wing right here in this area, so that way we can conclude the video here. But already, just with this little section done and taking my time, I'm already liking the read of these wings right here. So you can see in this area right here, sticking to those sort of rules there where we have the skin tone showing through right here is a nice approach. You can even bring this down if you're specific on like how much skin tone you want showing. I can line it up if I'd like, where I kind of extend this right here. And follow that form that way. That works as well. As you can see, that looks nice as well. So that is basically my logic. That's the thought process, and that's the approach that I'm taking to go ahead and apply shading. Let me go ahead and give you a top view so you can see what we're looking at. Here is a top view of the shading we are working on here in this video. Please keep in mind that this is the only portion of the wing that is done. Once I'm done completing the wing right here with the same flow as I did with these, it's going to read a lot better in my artistic opinion. Allow me to zoom in to really show you the shading here up close. So you can see there is a lot of open area, there is a lot of natural skin showing. I didn't want to add too much shading, and in terms of darkness and lightness and how these are sitting, I'm sure that's also going to vary from artist to artist. I'm sure some may have went darker in some areas. I'm sure some artists may have even placed a shading in completely different areas, in which that is 110% okay as well. But for this demonstration, this is my logic, this is my thought process, and the approach that I take to go about applying shading when I'm applying shading to my tattoos. Now, if I had to touch base on anything specific that you may have heard throughout this video, I'm going to highly encourage you to drop a comment down below, and I'm going to do my absolute best to assist you in the best possible direction. I also have social medias all under the same name as this YouTube channel. I have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I would truly appreciate the support on there as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for me and ring that bell, as I'm going to be bringing more videos like this for you all. Thank you for tuning in yet again. You have a great day.